The night was cold, quiet, and heavy with dust. Streetlights flickered weakly over the narrow alleys of the ruined colony town. Most people had already gone inside before the nightly patrols began. Only one man still walked there, a tired human engineer named Eli Ward. His jacket was old, his boots worn, and in his hand was a small box of food he couldn't finish. Every night, Eli left his leftovers near the same broken wall where the stray animals gathered. A few cats, some wild dogs, even a damaged cleaning drone that sometimes followed him. It had become a small habit, one of the few good things left in his lonely life. He knelt beside the cracked bricks and placed the food box down. "There you go," he murmured softly, almost whispering to the night. "Dinner time, little ones." The wind rustled through the metal sheets and plastic waste scattered around the alley. Somewhere far away, an old broadcast tower hummed faintly. Eli stood up, brushing dust from his hands, ready to head back to his small workshop before curfew began. Then, a sound. Soft. Quick. Like feet scraping against the ground. Eli froze. He turned slowly, expecting maybe one of the dogs, or a scavenger. But what he saw made his heartbeat stop for a moment. Under the flickering yellow light of the lamp stood 3 figures. Thin. Quiet. Watching him carefully. Their eyes reflected the light in a strange silver glow. They weren't human. They looked young, maybe teenagers by human standards, but their skin had faint patterns that shimmered when the light hit them. Their hair was white like ash, their clothes torn and covered with dust. One of them, the tallest, held a metal rod like a weapon, though her hands trembled as she did. Eli stepped back slightly. "Hey! I'm not looking for trouble." The tallest one hesitated. Then a softer voice came from behind her, shaky but gentle. "Please, don't call the patrol." Eli blinked. The words were broken, but understandable. "You speak English?" "Little," the small one replied. "Learn from radio, not good." Now Eli could see them more clearly. They were alien girls, but not like the ones shown in propaganda videos. No shining armor, no cruel eyes. Just hungry, cold faces. One of them stared at the food box on the ground. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. He understood instantly. "Are you hungry?" he asked quietly. They didn't answer. But the way their eyes followed the box said everything. Eli sighed. "All right," he said, slowly crouching down. "It's just leftovers. Not much, but it's clean." He pushed the box forward across the dirt. The tallest one glanced at the others. Then, slowly, she stepped forward, her movements cautious like a wild animal expecting a trap. She picked up the box and sniffed it. The smell of cooked rice and meat filled the air. Without another word, they began to eat, fast, desperate, as if they hadn't eaten in days. Eli watched silently. His stomach felt tight, not from fear, but from something else, pity. He had seen starvation before, back during the war. Refugees. Children. But these weren't humans. These were aliens, enemies, supposedly. The same species that once bombed his city. Yet here they were, trembling in the dark, eating his food like it was the only meal left in the world. When they were done, the smallest girl looked up. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was calm, honest. Eli nodded, unsure what to say. "You shouldn't be out here. Patrols scan this area every hour. If they find you—" The tallest one interrupted. "We know. We hide." Her accent was strange, sharp. "We, no soldiers. We run away." Eli frowned. "Run away? From who?" She hesitated, then lifted her sleeve slightly. Under her pale skin was a faint mark, an etched symbol glowing faintly blue. Eli recognized it immediately. It was a military insignia from the alien empire's fleet. "You were soldiers?" "Not soldiers," she said quickly. "Cadets. They order us to fire at humans. We not want." Eli didn't know what to say. He glanced at their faces, fear, exhaustion, and something that looked like shame. Finally, he exhaled slowly. "You picked the wrong planet to hide on. People here won't forgive easily." "We know," she whispered. "But we had no place to go." The smallest one suddenly looked toward the dark sky. Patrol, she said in fear. Eli followed her gaze. A faint blue light flickered in the distance, drones sweeping across rooftops. His heart jumped. They were close. Get inside, he said quickly. The girls looked at each other, confused. My workshop's near. You'll freeze out here, or worse. He pointed down the street. Move! For a second, they didn't trust him. Then the middle one grabbed the smallest by the hand, and they ran silently beside him through the shadows. They reached a metal door half hidden behind old pipes. Eli unlocked it fast, pulling them inside just before the searchlights passed over the street. Inside, the air smelled like oil and burnt circuits. It was a small repair shop filled with broken machines and half-built drones. Eli quickly shut the lights off. The room sank into darkness, only the faint hum of a generator breaking the silence. The girls stood near the corner, their eyes still glowing faintly in the dark. Eli leaned against the wall, breathing hard. You can stay here, for tonight, he said. But tomorrow, we'll figure out what to do. The tallest one bowed her head slightly. Thank you, human. He gave a small tired smile. Name's Eli, he said. And you are? The girl hesitated, then spoke softly. Lyra. One by one, the others added their names, Sora and Keen. Eli repeated them quietly, as if memorizing. All right, Lyra, Sora, Keen, welcome to my little corner of the galaxy. Outside, the patrol drones moved away, their engines fading into the night. Inside that small dark workshop, a fragile alliance was born, one built not from power, but from kindness. And though Eli didn't know it yet, that small act of mercy was about to change the fate of two species. The night passed slowly. The wind outside howled through the broken metal walls, carrying the sound of distant patrol drones. Inside the small workshop, everything was quiet except for the faint hum of Eli's old generator. The three alien girls sat together near a corner, wrapped in worn blankets Eli had found from an old storage box. They looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to trust the human who had saved them or to run before daylight came. Eli worked silently at his desk, pretending to repair a circuit board. In truth, his mind was racing. He kept thinking about the blue mark he had seen on Lyra's arm, the insignia of the alien empire. It made no sense. Why would soldiers, even cadets, be hiding here on a ruined human world? When he looked up again, Lyra was watching him. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. You didn't sleep, she said. Eli smiled weakly. Neither did you. She hesitated, then asked softly, why you help us? Eli stopped his work. The question hung heavy in the air. He thought for a moment, then answered simply, because you were hungry. Lyra didn't reply. She looked down, clutching the blanket tighter. The smallest one, Sora, spoke next. Her voice was thin, almost childlike. In Academy, they teach us, humans are dangerous. That you have no mercy. Eli gave a small laugh. They teach you wrong. Sora tilted her head. And your leaders? They tell same about us. Yeah, Eli said quietly, and they're wrong too. For a moment, silence returned. Then Keen, the middle one, stood up and looked around the workshop. She touched the broken drones, the scattered wires, the dust-covered walls. You live here? She asked. Eli nodded. It's not much, but it's home. Used to fix colony machines before the war. Now, I just fix what's left. Keen's eyes softened a little. We had homes too, she whispered. They took them away. Eli frowned. Who? The Empire, Lyra answered. Our own kind. Eli stared at her, surprised. Your people? Lyra nodded slowly. We were on training ship. They told us to attack human camp. Civilians. We refused. So they called us traitors. We ran. Our ship crashed in mountains 2 days ago. Eli leaned back, rubbing his forehead. The story was almost too strange to believe, but the fear in their eyes was real. He didn't need proof. He'd seen that same look on humans before, people running from their own leaders just to stay alive. So you've been hiding since then? He asked. Lyra nodded. We found no food. No friends. Only fear. Eli sighed deeply. Well, congratulations. You just found the only idiot on this planet willing to get himself executed for feeding the enemy. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her. Then, thank you, idiot. He chuckled quietly, shaking his head. You're welcome. As morning light began to filter through the broken ceiling panels, Eli moved to the window and peeked outside. Patrol ships hovered low across the horizon. He knew they were still searching. If anyone saw those girls here, it would be over, for all of them. He turned back. You can't stay here long, he said. They'll scan this district again by night. Lyra stood up. We'll leave when dark returns. Sora looked frightened. Go where? Anywhere, Lyra said firmly. Better to die free than be taken again. Eli frowned. That's not a plan. That's suicide. Lyra met his eyes. Then tell us another. Eli was quiet. He didn't have one. His world had no safe place left, not for humans, not for anyone. But something in his chest wouldn't let him give up. He had lost everything during the war, his family, his city, his reason to hope. Maybe saving them was his last chance to do something that mattered. Fine, he said finally. I'll help you get out of the city. But first, you need food, rest, and a disguise. Keen looked confused. Disguise? Eli nodded. You'll need to look human enough to pass the checkpoints. I've got old uniforms somewhere. We'll make it work. Sora smiled shyly. You help again? Eli gave a tired grin. Looks like I don't learn from my mistakes. Hours passed. Eli prepared food from what little he had. He fixed a small heater and gave them fresh water from his purifier. He even cut pieces from old work clothes and stitched them into jackets for the girls. When he handed one to Lyra, she stared at it quietly. You treat us like friends, she said. Eli shrugged. You're just people. Different skin, different stars. That's all. Lyra looked down at the rough brown jacket, her fingers brushing over the human patch on the sleeve. She whispered softly, maybe we are not so different. As night returned, the sound of patrol engines echoed again, louder this time. A warning light flashed on Eli's scanner. Someone nearby was broadcasting a coded signal, a distress beacon. Eli frowned. That's military encryption, he said. Someone's looking for you. Lyra froze. The Empire. Keen stepped forward, her face pale. We must go. Now. But Eli shook his head. No time. If you move now, you'll lead them straight here. He moved quickly to the control panel and shut down all power sources. The workshop fell into darkness. Only the faint light from the sky crept through the cracks. Lyra whispered, they'll find us. Eli looked at her calmly. Not tonight. He pulled a lever, sealing the metal shutters, and motioned for them to stay low. The faint whir of search drones grew nearer. Through the slits in the metal, beams of blue light swept past. 3 alien girls crouched beside a human man in silence, all breathing the same dusty air, all praying for the same thing, to live one more night. And as the drones passed by without stopping, Eli whispered, welcome to humanity's best skill, hiding hope where no one looks. The next morning came quietly. Pale sunlight slipped through the cracks of Eli's workshop roof, painting lines of gold across old metal tables. Dust floated in the air like drifting stars. The world outside looked calm, but Eli knew better. Calm was the Empire's favorite trick before they struck again. He sat at his desk, tinkering with a small drone transmitter. It was a habit, something to keep his hands busy while his mind stayed alert. The 3 alien girls were still asleep in the corner, curled under worn blankets. For a few peaceful minutes, he almost forgot the danger that waited beyond the walls. Then the machine in front of him crackled to life. A soft beep. Then another. The signal screen blinked red. Eli frowned. That can't be right. He adjusted the receiver, and lines of code appeared, encrypted military transmission. The coordinates were close. Very close. Someone out there was scanning this area again. But this time, it wasn't a random patrol. The code carried an identifier, Search Order 49B. His heart sank. It was a manhunt signal. He looked back at the sleeping girls. Their faces were peaceful, exhausted from nights of running. For a moment, he wanted to wake them. Then he stopped. What would he even say? Good morning, they're coming to kill you? He turned the signal down and studied the code further. Hidden in the message header was a strange data pulse, like a tracker ping. That meant someone nearby was transmitting. Not the Empire. Someone else. Who the hell's broadcasting? He whispered. Just then, Lyra stirred. Her silver eyes opened, glowing faintly even in daylight. You found something, she said softly, reading his expression. Eli nodded. Someone sending out a signal from close by. A mile at most. Lyra sat up quickly. A signal for us. Could be. The encryption matches your fleet's code. Sora gasped. Then they found us. Eli looked grim. Maybe. But the signal isn't strong enough to reach orbit. It's coming from ground level. Someone's sending a lure. Keen frowned. A lure? Eli turned to her. Yeah. They want to make you reply. Once you do, they'll triangulate your position. It's an old trick. Works every time. The three girls exchanged worried looks. Sora whispered, then we should go far away. Eli shook his head. Running makes noise. They'll track the movement. Lyra clenched her fists. Then what do we do? Eli sighed, rubbing his forehead. We stay quiet. I'll trace the signal first. If it's really them, we move after dark. He spent the next hour building a scanner out of old drone parts, connecting it to the receiver. The air inside the workshop grew tense. None of the girls spoke. Every faint sound, the hum of a distant engine, the groan of the metal ceiling, made them flinch. When the device finally stabilized, Eli read the coordinates aloud. It's coming from the old communication tower. 3 kilometers east. Lyra's face turned pale. That's where our ship crashed. Eli stared at her. Your ship? She nodded slowly. If it's still there, the Empire will find it soon. Eli leaned back, thinking fast. We can't let them recover your ship. There's tech in there they'll use to track every human hideout on this planet. Keen's voice trembled. Then, we go back. He looked at her, his eyes cold but determined. We go back. The plan was dangerous. Stupid even. But Eli wasn't a man who walked away once he decided. At sunset, they left the workshop, moving through back alleys and broken streets. The air was thick with smoke and static hums from patrol drones. Eli led them through the ruins of an old marketplace, using his scanner to track the beacon. Every few steps, the signal grew stronger. The crash site wasn't far now. As they approached the tower hill, the ground turned black, scorched metal, melted earth. The remains of the alien ship lay half buried under rubble, its hull still glowing faintly blue. Sora whispered, home, but her voice cracked. There was no home left here. Only wreckage. Eli crouched near a console that still blinked weakly. There's your signal, he said. Someone turned your distress beacon back on. Lyra's eyes widened. Who? Before he could answer, a faint voice came from behind the ship. Lyra? Is that you? They turned sharply. A figure stepped out from the shadows, an alien male soldier, wearing damaged armor, his face marked with the same insignia as theirs. Lyra gasped. Commander Tyan. The soldier smiled faintly. You survived. Good. The Empire will forgive you if you return now. Come back with me. Eli's eyes narrowed. Forgive you? After they tried to kill you? Tyan ignored him. This is not your concern, human. Leave them. But Lyra didn't move. Her face was torn between fear and anger. You told us mercy was weakness, she said. And now you ask for ours. Tyan's smile faded. You think this man can protect you? He's nothing. His kind lost the war. Do you know what happens to humans who hide fugitives? Eli stepped forward. Guess I'll find out. The commander raised his blaster. Then you'll die first. But before he could fire, Keen shouted, no, and threw a broken metal pipe at the beacon tower. Sparks flew, the transmitter exploded, and the entire area filled with smoke. "Run!" Eli yelled. They bolted down the hill, shots flashing through the haze. Energy beams tore through the ruins, lighting the dark like lightning. Eli dragged Sora behind a wall, shielding her as debris fell. Lyra turned back once, saw the tower collapsing, and whispered through tears, "Goodbye, Commander." Then they vanished into the ruins as the wreck burned behind them. When they finally stopped miles away, lungs aching, Eli looked back at the distant flames. "That signal's gone," he said. "No one's finding that ship now." Lyra stared at him. "You risked your life again, for us." Eli gave a tired smile. "I told you before. I don't like seeing people hungry. Or hunted." Sora's voice was small but steady. "Then maybe, you are not just human." Eli laughed softly. "Trust me, kid. I'm as human as it gets." The three girls looked at him in silence. Something changed that night, not just survival, but faith. For the first time, they believed a human's kindness could defy an empire. And in the sky above, far beyond their reach, new signals began to move, because one small act of courage had just woken the stars. The sun had already disappeared behind the broken horizon when Eli and the girls reached the edge of the industrial ruins. The air smelled of smoke, oil, and burned metal. The wreck of the alien ship was now only a distant glow in the night sky, a small fire dying in a dead world. They hid inside the skeleton of an old cargo factory. Broken machines surrounded them like giants turned to stone. The walls were cracked, and every sound echoed too loudly. Eli sealed the door with a rusted steel bar and motioned for silence. For a moment, the only noise was their breathing. Then Keen whispered, her voice trembling, "He found us. Tyne found us." Eli nodded grimly. "Yeah. And after that explosion, the whole sector will be crawling with patrols soon." Lyra looked around nervously. "We must keep moving." Eli shook his head. "No. You move now, you'll walk straight into their scanners. The Empire uses heat tracers at night. They'll pick you up like fire in darkness." Sora's voice was small, almost broken. "Then what do we do?" Eli took a deep breath. "We wait. And when the hunters come, we make sure they leave empty-handed." He walked to the back of the factory, searching through old tool crates and supply lockers. There were still some scraps of explosives, energy cells, and a few half-functional drones he had once repaired. His mind began to work fast. Lyra followed him quietly. "You plan to fight them?" she asked. Eli didn't look up. "Not fight. Survive." He pulled open a crate and found a dusty signal jammer. "If I can block their scanners for a few minutes, we might have a chance." Lyra frowned. "Why help us again? You could still run." He finally turned to her. His face was tired but firm. "I'm done running. Someone has to stand between monsters and mercy." For the first time, Lyra didn't argue. She just nodded, watching him work. An hour later, the factory was ready. Eli had set traps using electric cables and drone batteries, positioned reflectors to scatter heat signals, and connected the jammer to the old generator. He moved like a soldier who had done this before. Sora stared at him with wide eyes. "You know war things," she whispered. Eli gave a sad smile. "Once upon a time, I built weapons for humans. Thought it would keep us safe. I was wrong." Keen spoke softly from the corner. "Now you build safety for others." Eli paused, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess that's better." Midnight came. The first sign of the hunters was the humming in the sky, low, heavy, mechanical. Then beams of blue light swept across the ground like searching eyes. The air shimmered with the static of alien drones. "They're here," Eli whispered. He switched on the jammer. The generator buzzed, lights flickered, and a wave of interference filled the air. The patrol scanners started to glitch. For a brief moment, the factory disappeared from their maps. But not for long. From outside came the sound of boots crunching gravel, 6 soldiers, maybe more. Then a voice, harsh and robotic, thermal distortion detected. "Move in." Eli motioned for silence. He crawled to the side window, peeking through a crack. Silver-armored figures advanced through the fog, weapons glowing faintly blue. Their helmets emitted beams of light that cut through the darkness. He whispered to Lyra, "When I say run, take the south exit." "What about you?" she asked. Eli smiled faintly. "I'll keep them busy. It's what humans do best." She grabbed his hand. "Eli." But before she could finish, a blast shook the outer wall. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The aliens had found the door. Eli pushed her back. "Go now." The girls ran toward the back corridor while Eli pulled a lever that overloaded the first trap. A burst of white light exploded near the entrance, throwing the first two soldiers backward. Sparks and smoke filled the air. "Target confirmed," shouted one of them. "Human presence detected." Eli grabbed an old pulse rifle from the crate. The weapon hummed weakly. It wasn't built for power, only distraction. He fired a few shots at the ceiling beams, sending metal debris crashing down. The echoes roared through the factory, masking the girls' escape. Lyra looked back once and saw him standing in the haze, alone, surrounded by smoke and blue light. Outside, the girls ran through a maze of broken walls and fallen pipes. The sound of gunfire followed them like thunder. Keen stumbled, but Sora pulled her up. He said, "Run." Sora cried. "We can't stop." Lyra's heart pounded painfully. Every instinct told her to turn back, but Eli's voice echoed in her mind, "It's what humans do best." When they reached the far end of the ruins, a sudden explosion lit up the night sky behind them. The ground shook. The factory was burning. Keen gasped, tears in her eyes. "He's still inside." Lyra bit her lip, staring at the flames. "He bought us time. We can't waste it." Sora looked up at her. "Then we save him later." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, later." Inside the burning factory, Eli stumbled through smoke, coughing hard. His shoulder bled from shrapnel, but he managed to crawl behind a wall. The aliens searched through the wreckage, scanning for heat signatures. One of them stopped near the generator. "No life forms," it said. Eli smiled faintly, whispering under his breath, "Good." He pressed the detonator. The last trap exploded. Fire swallowed the factory in light. Outside, from a distance, the three girls saw the flames rise higher than the towers. None of them spoke. The silence said everything. Hours later, the night was quiet again. The Empire's patrols pulled back, reporting no survivors. But far from the ruins, in the shadow of an old bridge, a figure limped through the darkness, his clothes torn, his face covered in ash, but his eyes still alive. Eli Ward was breathing. He looked at the stars, whispering softly, "Still not done yet." In the distance, the three alien girls watched the same sky, unaware he had survived. They thought the human had fallen, but the universe was about to learn one thing. You can chase a human through the dark, but you can't kill what refuses to give up. Dawn crawled slowly over the wasteland. The sky was red and gray, heavy with smoke from last night's battle. The ruins of the factory still smoldered in the distance, silent proof of what the human had done. The three alien girls, Lyra, Keen, and Sora, had taken shelter in an old drainage tunnel beneath the mountain road. The tunnel walls were damp and cold, dripping with water that echoed like faint whispers. Lyra sat near the entrance, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Every few minutes, she looked back, hoping, praying, that maybe she would see him walking toward them. But he didn't. Keen sat apart from the others, hugging her knees tightly. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. Sora, the youngest, slept curled under a blanket of torn cloth, clutching a piece of metal, part of Eli's old drone, as if it was something sacred. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "He's gone." Keen looked up sharply. "Don't say that." "You saw the fire," Lyra whispered. "No one could survive that." Keen's voice cracked. "He's human. They never stop fighting." Lyra's expression softened. "I hope you're right." For hours, they stayed hidden, afraid to move. Patrol ships passed overhead, scanning the ground with blue light. Once, a search drone hovered dangerously close to their tunnel, forcing them to hold their breath. Only when it drifted away did they exhale again. By afternoon, their stomachs were empty, and their water was gone. Lyra decided they had to move before nightfall. "Where will we go?" Sora asked quietly. Lyra thought for a moment. The mountains. There are old human shelters there. Maybe others survived the war. Keen didn't answer. Her mind was somewhere else, distant, heavy with guilt. As they prepared to leave, she slipped away deeper into the tunnel, pulling a small communicator from her pocket. It was cracked and half-dead, its lights flickering weakly. She had taken it from the wreck before it exploded. Her hands shook as she pressed the activation switch. The screen came alive with faint static. A voice broke through, deep and cold. "This is Command. Identify yourself." Keen hesitated. Her throat tightened. "Cadet Keen 47, reporting." A long silence followed. Then the voice returned. "You survived the crash. Good. The Empire forgives loyalty. Give us your coordinates, and you will be rescued." Keen's eyes filled with tears. You'll take us back?" "Of course," the voice lied smoothly. "You and your companions will be honored for returning." She closed her eyes. In her heart, she knew it wasn't true. But hunger, fear, and guilt pressed against her like chains. Maybe this was the only way. Maybe she could save them. With trembling fingers, she sent the coordinates. An hour later, as the sun began to sink, Lyra and Sora were ready to move. Keen walked beside them, silent, pale, unable to meet their eyes. They climbed the rocky hills until they reached a ridge overlooking the valley. That's when Lyra saw it, 3 dark ships cutting across the clouds, descending fast. Her blood ran cold. "No," she whispered. Sora followed her gaze. "Is that?" "Empire patrols," Lyra said. "They found us." The realization hit Keen like a punch. "No," she said quickly, stepping back. "No, I didn't." Lyra turned to her sharply. "What did you do?" Keen's eyes filled with tears. I thought they would help us. I wanted to go home." Lyra's face went pale with fury. "You called them?" Before Keen could answer, a beam of blue light struck the ground nearby, sending rocks flying. The girls ducked as the valley filled with the roar of engines. Alien soldiers began to descend on grave discs, surrounding the ridge. "Hands up," a voice shouted through a loudspeaker. Lyra grabbed Sora and pulled her behind a boulder. "Run," she yelled. "But Keen." She made her choice. Lyra shouted back. Keen fell to her knees as the soldiers advanced. "Wait. I'm the one who sent the signal. Don't hurt them." The commander stepped forward. His armor gleamed under the fading sun. "All of you are traitors," he said coldly. "The human helped you. That alone is death." Keen looked up desperately. "He's dead. Please." The commander raised his blaster. "Then you will join him." Before he could fire, a voice echoed from the cliffs. "Not today." The commander froze. Everyone turned. Out of the shadows, limping but alive, came Eli Ward. His jacket was torn, his face covered in soot, one arm wrapped in blooded cloth, but his eyes burned like fire. He held a stolen alien rifle, aimed steady. The soldiers hesitated. "Impossible," one muttered. Eli smirked. "You aliens really need to update your definition of dead." He fired. A bright blue bolt struck the commander, knocking him backward. The ridge erupted into chaos. Lyra and Sora dashed between the rocks while Eli covered them, his shots precise and brutal. Keen, frozen in shock, finally screamed and ran toward them. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean." "Save it for later," Eli shouted. They ran together into the trees as explosions shook the ground behind them. The patrol ships fired blindly, but the terrain was too rough. By the time they recalibrated, their targets had vanished into the darkness. Hours later, in the safety of a small cave, the group huddled around a weak fire. Lyra tended to Eli's wounds while Sora cleaned his rifle. Keen sat apart, silent and trembling. Finally, Lyra spoke without looking up. "You betrayed us." Keen's voice cracked. "I wanted to save us. I didn't know they'd attack." Eli looked at her, his tone quiet but sharp. "That's the thing about monsters, Keen, they always smile before they bite." Keen started to cry softly. "I just wanted to go home." Eli stared into the fire. Then you'd better build a new one. Because the old one doesn't exist anymore. No one spoke after that. The flames flickered, casting their faces in orange light. The wind outside howled through the mountain like a warning. And somewhere far away, the Empire's ships began regrouping. They had lost their prey tonight, but now they wanted the human more than ever. Eli looked at the stars through the cave's opening. "They'll come again," he said quietly. Lyra followed his gaze. "Then we'll be ready." He nodded once. "Yeah. This time, they'll learn what it means to hunt humans in the dark." The storm came at dusk. Heavy rain fell over the mountains, washing away the ash from the burned valleys below. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up the cliffs where Eli and the alien girls hid inside a narrow cave. The small fire they had built hissed and died under the wind. The cave was dark now, cold and silent, except for the sound of rain and Eli's uneven breathing. He was injured badly. His shoulder was bleeding again, and his face was pale. Every time he tried to move, pain forced him to stop. Lyra sat beside him, wrapping the wound with torn cloth. "Don't move," she said quietly. He gave a weak smile. "You sound like a doctor." "I'm not," she whispered, tightening the bandage. "Just trying to keep you alive." "Then you're doing fine." Sora sat near the entrance, watching the rain. Keen sat apart from everyone, her eyes red, her guilt heavier than the storm outside. No one blamed her out loud, but the silence around her said enough. Hours passed. The rain didn't stop. The fire was gone. The cold crept in slowly, biting through their clothes. Eli leaned back against the rock, exhausted. His vision blurred, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew what was coming. The Empire wouldn't give up easily. He'd seen how they hunted. They'd track every signal, search every cave, until nothing was left. He looked at the girls, 3 fugitives who had lost everything yet still refused to give up. He thought about how this all began, just a man feeding stray animals in an alley. And now he was hiding from alien armies, bleeding, half dead, and somehow, he didn't regret a single thing. "Lyra," he said softly, "you need to listen." She turned toward him immediately. "Don't talk like that." "I'm serious," he said. "They'll come again. When they do, you can't stay here. Take Sora and Keen. Go north through the ridges. There's an old human shelter there, Bunker 49. I helped build it years ago. You'll be safe there." Lyra shook her head. "I'm not leaving you." Eli smiled faintly. "You don't have a choice." Keen looked up suddenly. "We could carry him." Eli laughed softly. "I'm heavy metal, kid. You'd last 10 steps. "No," she said stubbornly. "You saved us. We'll save you." He looked at her for a long moment. "You think saving me makes us even?" Keen's voice trembled. "It makes us better." The words hit him deeper than he expected. He didn't reply. That night, they heard it, the distant hum of engines. The Empire's search ships were back. Blue light flickered in the clouds like lightning made of machines. Lyra moved to the mouth of the cave. "They are close," she whispered. Eli forced himself to stand. His legs shook, but he didn't stop. He grabbed his rifle and checked the power cell. "Then we move now." Sora ran to him. "You can't fight again. You'll die." He looked at her, tired but calm. "I already almost did. Doesn't change what needs to be done." Lyra stepped in front of him. "No. We fight together." He shook his head. "You run. I'll draw them away." "Eli." "Listen," he said firmly, his voice rising above the wind. "You're not soldiers anymore. You're survivors. There's a difference. You live, so others might see that humans and aliens can stand on the same side." Lyra's jaw tightened. "And what about you?" Eli smiled. "I'll keep the story alive long enough for you to finish it." The sound of engines grew louder. Searchlights sliced through the rain. The ships were descending into the valley below. Eli pressed his hand against the wall, marking coordinates on the damp stone with a piece of metal. "Head north from here," he said. "Use the stars to guide you. The shelter is hidden near a waterfall." Lyra grabbed his hand. Stop talking like this is goodbye. He squeezed her hand gently. Sometimes goodbye just means live enough to remember. Tears welled in her eyes. Sora was crying too. Even Keen, silent until now, whispered, "I'm sorry." Eli nodded. "Then make it worth something." When the searchlights came closer, Eli stepped out into the rain. The wind tore through his jacket, cold and fierce, but he didn't care. His rifle hummed to life, glowing faintly in the darkness. Behind him, the girls watched, 3 fugitives, 3 witnesses, to what humans were made of. Eli turned to them one last time. "Go. Now." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "We'll come back for you." He smiled faintly. "That's what everyone says." Then he stepped into the storm. Minutes later, the valley lit up with blaster fire. Explosions echoed through the mountains. The alien search ships focused on one lone figure standing in the rain, one human against the Empire. Lyra led the others through the rocky tunnels, every sound of the battle behind them cutting through her heart like a blade. When they finally reached the ridge, she turned back. The night sky glowed with light and fire. Somewhere in that chaos, Eli was still fighting. She whispered through tears, "He's not trying to win. He's trying to save us." Hours later, when the explosions finally stopped, the sky went quiet again. The rain had washed away the tracks. The searchlights were gone. And somewhere in the mist, Lyra looked toward the stars. "We owe him everything," she said softly. Keen nodded. "Then we'll carry his name." Sora wiped her tears. "No, we'll carry his kindness." Lyra smiled faintly. "Same thing." They walked toward the mountains under the fading light. Behind them, the storm died slowly, leaving only silence. And somewhere in that silence, a faint voice, half memory, half wind, seemed to whisper, "Kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest weapon we have." 3 days passed since the storm. The mountains were silent again, only the whisper of wind and the soft trickle of rain through the cliffs. Lyra, Sora, and Keen moved through the forested ridges, their clothes torn, their faces streaked with dirt and exhaustion. But they didn't stop. Eli's words still echoed in their minds. "Go north. Live enough to remember." They followed the stars until they reached a valley hidden behind layers of mist. There, half buried under moss and stone, stood the entrance to Bunker 49, just like Eli said. Lyra placed her hand against the rusted door panel. "He wasn't lying," she whispered. With a low hum, the old system powered on. The door slid open, revealing a dark hallway filled with flickering lights and dust. Inside were crates, machinery, and old human tech, abandoned but not dead. They stepped inside carefully. Sora pressed a switch, and the bunker lights flickered weakly to life. On one of the tables lay a dusty communication terminal, still connected to a power cell. Keen stared at it. "This could send a signal," she said. Lyra frowned. "A signal to who?" Keen's voice shook slightly. "To everyone." That night, as the 3 girls worked together, they found old video logs in the terminal, records of the early war. Among them was a broken audio file labeled "Edit Ward." Lyra clicked it. The screen lit up with static, then cleared enough to show Eli's tired face. He looked older, worn, but his eyes carried the same fire they remembered. "This is Eli Ward," his voice said through static. "If anyone's hearing this, it means I didn't make it home." Lyra's throat tightened. He continued, "War taught me something simple. Empires fall, planets burn, but kindness, that never dies. You feed one stranger, you help one enemy, you plant one seed of trust, and maybe, just maybe, the universe changes." The recording cut briefly, then returned. "If aliens ever find this, don't fear us. Understand us. Humans aren't perfect. We break, we bleed, but we stand for something no empire can crush. We stand for each other." Then the screen went dark. Sora whispered, "He left this for us." Lyra looked at the terminal. "No," she said softly. "He left it for everyone." They spent the next 2 days rebuilding the transmitter. Keen used the alien frequency systems from her ship's remains. Sora decoded Eli's communication protocols. Lyra adjusted the power cell and stabilized the broadcast range. Finally, the system hummed to life. A faint blue glow filled the room. The signal was ready. Lyra uploaded the recording. Once I hit send, it'll spread through every channel, human, alien, rebel, even Empire military lines. Keen hesitated. They'll trace it. I know. Sora's voice was soft but firm. Then we make it count. Lyra pressed the button. The screen flashed, transmission active. Across the stars, across every world under the Empire's control, a message began to play. People in crowded cities stopped to listen. Soldiers on alien warships froze mid-patrol. Humans hiding in ruins lifted their heads as the static cleared, and Eli Ward's voice echoed through the systems of both species. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest weapon we have. A human once fed 3 hungry strangers. And from that small act came something bigger than war. If you hear this, remember, hope doesn't come from orders. It comes from choices. The message spread like wildfire. The Empire tried to jam it, but it was too late. Every transmission network was already echoing the same thing, the human who fed the enemy. On one alien world, a soldier removed his helmet and looked at the stars. Maybe we were wrong, he whispered. On a human colony, survivors cheered for the first time in years. Someone painted the words "Ward lives" on the side of a destroyed transport. And in the heart of the Empire's capital, even the High Council couldn't stop the whispers. Humans don't conquer. They inspire. Back in the mountains, the girl stood outside the bunker, watching the night sky. The stars glowed brighter now, as if listening. Sora smiled faintly. He's everywhere now. Keen nodded. They'll remember him. Lyra looked toward the horizon. No, she said softly. They'll remember what he stood for. A gentle wind passed through the trees. For a moment, it felt like someone was standing beside them, watching, smiling. Lyra whispered into the night, "You did it, Eli. You changed the galaxy." Months later, rumors spread through the systems of a growing movement, humans and aliens working together under one banner, the Ward Accord. Its symbol was simple, a broken hand offering food to another. Everywhere, soldiers began to lay down their weapons. Colonies opened shelters for all species. A new alliance was born, not from treaties or power, but from one man's kindness in an alley long ago. On the edge of the galaxy, in the ruins of a forgotten planet, a child once more placed a small box of food beside a wall. A faint voice echoed in her mind, kind, warm, and human. The smallest act can start the biggest change. And as the stars shimmered above, the legend of Eli Ward lived on, not as a warrior, but as something greater. A reminder that in a universe filled with war and fear, sometimes the greatest victory begins with a single shared meal.